Well, guys, welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm Megan Payton. In an upsetting loss against the Packers, we are going to recap all of it. But we do want to thank our friends over at BetQL. We're going to tell you more about it. But if you go to chatsports.com/SteelersQL, you are going to get 25% off of all their subscription offerings. Now, moving on to what was another just upsetting loss. And to me, I mean, 17-27, that was the final score. And you look at this schedule early on before the season, and you know that the Packers are going to be a tough game. You know that going against Aaron Rodgers is hard. Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, Randall Cobb, this is a hard team to play, but we just didn't see it out of Pittsburgh. I mean, it's just that simple. I wish we could say that, hey, they lost, but there was a lot of encouraging things. I just don't feel like that was the case. 27-17. And to me, it almost feels like it was a bigger loss than this. We're going to break all of this down, offense, defense, but I do want you guys to just give your initial reactions. Grade the Steelers' performance, A, B, C, D, or F. Go to the comments right now. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Before we break down offense, defense, all of the issues, just quick injury updates for you guys. Cameron Sutton, cornerback, he went out with a groin injury. Obviously, we don't know much about this. We do know that he wasn't playing at the end of the game. Mike Tomlin will hopefully give us more updates on him probably Tuesday. Another guy on the O-line that we have talked about the injuries and the issues with the offensive line. Kevin Dotson, he went out with a hip flexor injury. Again, nothing to report as far as his status. We'll know more on Tuesday. But I will say, for Pittsburgh, leaving the game with only 2 injuries, I mean, I guess that's a positive. That's the point that we're at right now with this Steelers team. And we're going to recap all of the things that happened. But my just quick initial thoughts are, hey, like, this is a tough team to play against, and so I don't fault Pittsburgh completely for, not coming up on top against Aaron Rodgers, but we are struggling on offense bad. We are struggling on defense. The play calling is not there. There is a ton of things that need to be changed, and we're going to start over with the defense. I'd say that, hey, they played a little bit tougher, but it's still not great. And if the offense is going to be so bad, the defense has to step it up a notch. And to me, this is where you're going to need to see Pittsburgh improve. When you've got guys like TJ Watt on this team, you've got Hayward, you've got some good guys that can help bring the Pittsburgh defense up a notch. It's just not happening, in my opinion. And this offense is struggling so bad that we need improvement in one area. Before we break down kind of each player and what they did, I do want to tell you guys what's going on at BetQL. If you go to chatsports.com/SteelersQL, you're going to get 25% off of all of their subscription offerings. You just got to use the code ChatSteelers. They give the best bet recommendations every week. They've got everything from player props, over-unders, spreads, you name it. They are the place to use if you are going to be betting at all this season. And now moving on into TJ Watt. TJ Watt, to me, he didn't look 100% throughout this whole game. I'd say that in the first half, he really didn't look healthy. You saw the way that he was struggling, not running up to Rodgers. That isn't normal for Watt, so I was worried about him. Now, he did progress as the game went on. I'd say he looked a little bit healthier, but he struggled in that first half. He had a roughing the passer call. He got credited with a sack that was a kind of trip that probably should have been a penalty. But to me, this is a guy that needs to get 100%. Until he gets 100%, we're not going to see the full potential out of him. And he said during the press conference after the game, he just felt like they were trying to do too much. And I could see it. They need to just have a clean approach. And when you try to do too much, this is where you see the errors happen, the roughing the passer penalty. And he did have a picked up fumble, so we'll give him that. And he's obviously one of the best players on this Steelers team, probably the number 1 guy. So my main concern with him is his health status. He really wouldn't touch on that during the press conference. He said, I was good enough to play. And that was essentially all that he said. But in this game, he did have 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 fumble recovery. But the defensive line, to me, is where the Steelers need to step up a notch on the defensive side of things. Maybe apart from Cameron Hayward. Cameron Hayward is, again, another dominant player on this team. And I think overall need to see the pass rush stronger. And obviously with Alula on IR, we didn't get to see him in today. And hey, Wormley did have a really good kind of fumble recovery help. He kind of pushed it out, let TJ Watt get that fumble recovery. So we'll give them some credit here. But overall, when I look at the defensive line, I'm saying we need more pass rush. They were not getting to Rodgers quick enough. And to me, that created a lot of the problems. And then you look over at Minkah Fitzpatrick. And Minkah Fitzpatrick got absolutely screwed in this game. In my opinion, he had an amazing field goal block return for a touchdown. It gets called back because they say Joe Hayden is offsides. To me, there was nothing there. There was not enough there to call an offsides. And that changes the game. And I'm not saying that the Steelers would have beaten the Packers if this call didn't happen, but I will say we talk about big plays changing momentums. That was a huge momentum shift for the Steelers. And when that got called back, I call BS on that. To me, that was not a fair call. I don't know. I don't agree with what the refs did there. Go to the comments right now and let me know, were the Steelers offsides? If you think they were, type Y for yes. And if not, type N for no. And we talk about BetQL and what they can do to help provide you guys with the best bet recommendations. Well, they are partnering up with BetMGM. And if you go to chatsports.com/SteelersMGM, you're going to just create an account, sign up, deposit $10 into your account, and then within 24 hours of your first bet, you are going to get a free year of BetQL. That means a free year of the best bet recommendations. Bet smart this year, guys. Bet correctly, put your money somewhere wise, and go check out this amazing deal that BetQL is doing with BetMGM. Now on to the offensive side of things, where it's just the least bit encouraging to me. The defense, I feel like, hey, we can step things up. Injuries are going to happen. It's going to get a little bit better. I'm not as concerned, but I am so concerned about the offense. They are struggling. It is bad. And the fourth down play calling, it's just not helping. I mean, Mike Tomlin struggled with this last week. They threw a pass short of the sticks, didn't work out. Then you go into this week, and not once, but twice on fourth down, they try to throw short of the sticks. They don't convert, and you can't keep doing the same mistakes. You've got to learn from them, say, this isn't working. We've got to try something else. And Big Ben is still struggling. I wish and I was hoping so much that we were going to see a more dominant performance by him. And it's funny because if you look at these stats, it's really not that bad but they're misleading. I mean, he had a 65 completion percentage, 232 yards, 1 touchdown, and then that terrible interception at the end of the game. But he had some really bad deep connections to Juju Smith, and he touched on that in his press conference, saying that he just, it's part of the way he drops his elbow back, and that's causing him just to not be as accurate. But this is where the age is becoming a problem. His lack of mobility is becoming a problem. And so if they're going to stick with Big Ben this season, they need to be quicker in the passing game. They need to just have a quick passing game, and that's what it's going to have to be. But you're just seeing those short passes out of him. You're not seeing his ability to make deep connections. And to me, it's just as bad as it was last week. And so I'm not saying that it's time to 100% call it quits. Let's take him out next week. But I'm saying we're going to need to see a lot of other guys step up if Big Ben is going to be in here. He's just too old and not able to do what he was able to do a few years ago. But a guy that I do think stepped up, we are going to have some positive to talk about today, is Diontae Johnson. Diontae Johnson was back after being out last week. He had a strong game, in my opinion. He had 9 receptions, 92 yards, averaging 10.2, and he had a touchdown in the opening drive. And man, that opening drive gave me so much hope. I saw that and I was like, the Steelers, this is their comeback game. And then it went downhill from there. But Diontae Johnson is a guy that I think is going to be really helpful to this, obviously, to the Steelers offense. And he had some mental errors during this game. There was a third down that he ran backwards in, so you don't love to see that. But to me, he honestly looked pretty good. This is someone, when you look back at this game, you rewatch it, you're going to say, hey, Johnson had a good game. This is someone I'm going to give some credit to. And we're going to keep you guys updated all season long, the good, the bad, everything in between, and hopefully more good. But I know that a lot of you guys are not subscribed to our channel right now. So go click that big red button. Help us out here over at Chat Sports and subscribe to stay updated on Steelers content all season long. Now, we talked about the deep connection misses that Big Ben had to Juju Smith-Schuster, so therefore his game just wasn't great. He only had 2 receptions for 11 yards. Now, I'd say that maybe you look at a couple passes that he probably could have caught, but ultimately those deep balls were Big Ben's fault, so I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on Juju. Not to mention he also is coming off that rib injury that was just bruised ribs, but he's someone that they probably don't want to rely on 100%. And a guy that they didn't use as much in the as a receiving weapon this week, but actually as a rushing unit, thankfully, is Najee Harris. Mike Tomlin talked about making sure that they, didn't overuse him as a receiver, and they didn't this week. This week he had 15 carries for 62 yards, and he had his first rushing touchdown of his career. And this is someone, again, that I can be encouraged by. He is improving every single week, and this is important. Again, we have to say it, but if Big Ben isn't going to be performing well, if he's going to be acting like the way that he has been these last 4 weeks, Najee Harris is going to be key to just at least provide some run game. He's a strong guy. He's very effective, and I really like what we're seeing out of Najee Harris. And the O-line, who we've talked about so much over these last 4 weeks, I'm going to start by saying, hey, there was some progress here. There was only 5 quarterback hits in this game for Big Ben, and so there's some improvement there. It's not great, obviously. I think my main concern is, I'd say, Dan Moore Jr., he's still struggling. He had a roughing the passer call, and he allowed Big Ben to get sacked. But I'd say that it's a work in progress. This is what happens when you have young guys like this, and obviously some injuries. We know Chukwuma Okorafor, and then later Kevin Dotson, we said that earlier in this video, he went out with a hip injury. So we'll have to keep you guys updated, but this O-line is struggling still, but I'm a little bit encouraged saying that they had some sort of progress in this week 4 matchup, but overall just a tough loss for Pittsburgh. So I don't know if you guys are hitting the panic button yet. I'm not saying it's time to hit the big red button, say we are done, this season's over, but I'm saying we are in a competitive AFC North. Right now, the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns, they all sit at 3-1. The Steelers are at 1-3. So it needs to happen soon. I mean, the Packers are a tough team to play. So regardless of, how their season had been going prior to this game, that that's going to be a tough matchup against Aaron Rodgers. But the Steelers have got to change the momentum. They've got to look. They're going to be facing the Broncos. We're going to be previewing all of that later this week, but they've got to do something. There's some changes that need to be made. And I don't know what my number 1 change is for me, but let me ask you guys, what do you guys think Pittsburgh needs to change? What's the number 1 thing that you would do if you were Mike Tomlin? Go to the comments right now and let me know.